Well, for those of you out on the West Coast, good morning. For the rest of you, good afternoon. I want to thank you so much for joining us again for a webinar here at the Home Furnishings Association. I'm Mark Schumacher, Executive Vice President, and today is really, I think, in my book, a no-miss webinar, because joining us is Todd Wanek, the CEO of Ashley Furniture Industries, and just thrilled to have him here for a number of reasons. And first of all, not only are they the world's largest furniture manufacturer, and we can talk a lot about how manufacturing and supply chain have been impacted, but also, of course, they have Ashley Home Stores that they corporately own. They've got franchisees, and they supply product to probably every member of the HFA, all the way down to the mom and pop store on the corner. So I'm happy to have him. I want to mention a couple things really quickly. This is being recorded, so you will be able to see this again or recommend it to other people. Our page is myhfa.org/COVID-19. Also, you can send us a few questions if you'd like. You'll see that on the side of your screen there is that ability. But, you know, Todd, I just want to start out by saying, here's one thing we know about COVID-19. It's changed how we live and how we're living right now. You and I have talked, and others have talked many times about the fact that it is going to incredibly change how people shop, how they buy, and then how retailers run their businesses. In looking at questions that people sent in when they signed up for this, really, I think that everybody wanted to start at square one, which is the economy and where we sort of seeing all that work. And for people that don't know, you're in consistent communication on a daily basis with a lot of the top financial people. So first and foremost, thank you for being here. And if you would like to take off running, we'd love to start.
Sounds good. Well, Mark, thank you for inviting me to this webinar. I really appreciate it. And, you know, these educational programs are really important. And as we talked before, don't stop it. Just keep these things going, because this is unbelievably important and very powerful information that you're sharing with everybody and trying to really educate the industry. And I commend you for that. Great job. I also want to thank our customers. You know, we're very thankful for the business that you've been giving us over the years. We've done everything that we can as an organization to keep our factories open and distribution centers open over this period of time and continue to ship. So I just want to give a shout out to all of our customers and thank you for all of your business over the years. And we look forward to a great future together. As you want to talk about the economy, you know, I really have a rare opportunity to talk to a lot of people. This morning I talked to the chief economist for Deutsche Bank. I talked to chief economists from Goldman Sachs and many other organizations, and I take every opportunity that I can to talk to people about what they see happening with the economy. And I'll tell you, the viewpoints vary. It's a tremendous variance. You know, some people are talking about a W, which is where everything opens and then we go back into a recession again, or lockdown, and then it opens again and then we go back up. Others are talking about a U-shaped recovery, and others are talking about a V. So you see a broad spectrum of opinions. And you know, I think the bottom line is we could be going through, we could hit a double dip. I think the likelihood, based on what we're hearing now and the harm that was done to the economy, is very small that we're going to go into a double dip. But you know, the fact of the matter is, I think everybody was very surprised by what happened. They were surprised by the virus and the impact the virus has had on individuals and the psychology as well as the states. We're going into our 45th day of a stay-at-home order. 45 days of stay at home. So you can imagine, and we all know this because we watch the news and we talk and we're living it. You know, this has been dramatic to the economy overall. You know, the stimulus that the president put in place was very substantial. And we've all seen a lot of wonderful things happen from that stimulus. Our employees have been helped. A lot of us, not us, but not Ashley, but many of our retailers and other people that I'm familiar with have gotten the PPP program, and that's helped them a lot. Our employees got the stimulus checks as well as unemployment benefits, so that's helped them. But the belief is that we are going to be in an unbelievably stimulated environment for the near future. The Federal Reserve is going to be very accommodative, and it's the expectation is that Trump will have another stimulus package. So, you know, we're really expecting that there's going to be a tremendous amount of stimulus coming out over the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. And that's going to help the economy out an awful lot. And that's very, very positive on everything that we're seeing happen. The industries that are going to be impacted, which we all know, restaurants will continue to be impacted very significantly. Hotels, travel, those industries are really going to have a tough time coming out of the ditch. Consumers are going to be reluctant to go out. We know that. And when they do go out, the expectation is that they're going to buy more. So they're going to go out less and they're going to buy more every time they do go out, which is good news for overall business. But you may see store traffic go down over this period of time. And I think that it's just going to be incredibly disruptive, Mark. We're going to see dramatic changes in the economy going forward. So
I want to ask you this, and this is something that, rather than save it till the end, I think it's kind of an overarching umbrella to the conversation we're having today. Is that you make it very clear that the way that home furnishing retailers have done business in the past is done, and changed forever. And maybe we don't know exactly what that's still going to look like down the way here, but you really feel like forget about normal, right? Throw normal out the window. That definition, I guess, is long gone. Is that fair to say?
I would say that's fair to say. And let me just correlate that to a couple industries that people are expecting to be impacted in a major way. Number one, grocery is going to win. We're all seeing that grocery is going to win. The expectation is 15 to 30% of the restaurants will be closed within the next 12 months. And the reason is these prepared meals are becoming so good, and we're seeing the grocery stores really step up with delivery. And I don't know whether you're getting prepared meals or not, but my son gets them all the time. And they're very good at what they do. And they're now getting to really expand those services. So that's going to impact the restaurant industry. You look at department stores. JCPenney's has been on the verge for quite a while. This is probably going to be the tipping point. Obviously, Neiman Marcus, I think, is on the tipping point from what I'm being told. Macy's, and you just go through all those department stores and how dramatic it's going to be to them. The expectations over the next 2 years, we're going to see 50% of the malls close. The enclosed malls will shut down. So we're going to see dramatic changes, not just in the home furnishings industry, but really throughout the general economy. And that's good or bad, depending on how you want to look at it. I mean, some of these shifts are just getting accelerated at a faster pace. They were happening anyway, but this has accelerated everything. And you and I talked previously, Mark, that it takes 30 days to change a habit. 30 days to change a habit. So we're 45 days into the coronavirus of buying groceries and having them delivered to our home, buying other things and having them delivered to our home. So some of these habits are changed, and they'll never come back.
The other part of this too, and this is where I don't envy your position and other retail owners, and I don't care the size, is that this is also different no matter where you go in the country. Rules are different. The arc of the virus is different, and there's this term now that has taken on a huge new significance, and that's localized economy. Can you also talk about that, because it's not a one size fits all?
Right, that's true. We're seeing states like Florida, Georgia, Texas be much more accommodative to retail and business in general. Other states like New York, New Jersey, the state I'm in, and the state of Wisconsin, and others are taking a different approach to opening businesses up. They're much more harnessed, they're much tighter, and they're not allowing businesses to open up and do business. So I believe that we will be entering a localized economy. Number one, people are going to be scared to travel. They did the antibody test in Germany, and they found that 25% of the people that they took the antibody test on actually had a predisposition to the virus. So if we do that in the US, which they're saying that they will roll out testing for the virus, and 25% of the people are in the clear, they're going to be like, oh, well, let's go out and party, and let's go out and have a good time. Well, let's go out and buy things, because they're not going to be scared to do anything, and they'll probably take advantage of everything that's happening, whether it's hotel rates or airfare. It'll be a lot cheaper. And then there's this other class of people, the other 75%, and me, I'm a little bit older. I'm a little more nervous about going out. So I believe that you're going to enter a period of localized economies, and people are going to be concerned about traveling farther distances. And we're going to go into a much more localized economy than we've ever had before, just because people are more concerned about traveling. And when they do travel, a percentage of the population just won't want to stay in hotels.
I want to try to balance what we talked about. And I know that at your heart, you're an optimistic person, and you see opportunity when these things happen. There's two things that I want to point out to you there. Is number one, then for our retail family, they perhaps know their community better than anybody. So is this also a call to really kind of get back to basics to say, look, don't try to be a mini Amazon or Wayfair or whatever. Be yourself and own that part of it. Is that maybe, and maybe you're even preaching that to some of your franchisees, I don't know, but what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I don't know about not being Amazon or Wayfair. I think you got to have a very diverse product assortment. The difficulty that we all have is, let's say you've got a 30,000 square foot store and you've got an assortment that matches that 30,000 square foot store, and you're defining what your customers are going to shop for based on what you like and based on what's sold in the past. The beauty of going to Amazon or Wayfair is you can get whatever you want. And my belief is you've got to find a way through endless aisle to offer them a wider assortment of product, whether it's styles or price points or whatever it happens to be. You've got to really focus in on this endless aisle approach. So I would say I wouldn't give up on the Wayfair concept. I would say go into the endless aisle, find people that provide services. We provide Ashley Express, which allows for endless aisle, and really go after the business that way and look at how you can offer a broader assortment to your customers. But when you talk about the fact that you've got to become much more local, I will tell you that there's no question being very focused on your local economy, on fundraisers and other events, even giving back to your communities. I think that's going to be very, very important. The other thing we all learned through this was the fact that you've got to be politically connected. We all saw rules go in place in our cities, where Costco and Walmart, all those guys were allowed to open and sell furniture. And we weren't politically connected enough in many communities that we could say, our company also sells, your company, retail stores, also sell mattresses, we sell lift chairs, we sell outdoor furniture, we sell adjustable beds, home office furniture. Why weren't we considered essential? And I think if we do go into a W, which is another dip, where they end up shutting everything down again, we've got to make sure that we've got a voice in that whole process as an industry, and you've got to make sure you've got a voice in your states, because I think that we all saw that we're not well represented in many cases, and we've got to get tighter in with our politicians and help influence what happens in the states to make sure that our organizations can stay open, because we need to be open for business. And that may be just for appointments, it may be with a small number of customers that come in your store. But if something would happen again economically and the virus goes, and maybe it's a different virus, not just this one, we got to make sure that we can be there to try to influence policy.
And what we have been kind of preaching for the last number of weeks here is don't just think about it as Capitol Hill. A lot of these open and closed decisions and restrictive decisions are local and county and state. And so, you have a great point. And this is also not, when you say politically connected, this does not matter which party. You're just saying, just be involved in your community, know who the heck you're talking to.
Absolutely.
What do you think kicking a little bit to the positive side here, what do you think are the things that positively can come out of this from a retail standpoint, with the fact that we are spending all of our time at home around all of our furniture? And I've had people making snide comments about the bedroom behind me, but that's beside the point.
I wasn't going to make that comment, by the way.
Thank you. Okay, please save that one for the end. No, but what are the advantages, do you think, the fact that we, the things that we can sort of capitalize on based upon the fact that people have been spending so much time at home?
Yeah, that's great. Number one, all the economists I talk to believe that there's going to be a resurgence of home. Everything around the home is going to be important. And I'm just going to show you something. This came from Deutsche Bank this morning. And I know you can't see it necessarily, but if you look at what I circled here, home is what I circled. It's the 5th fastest growing segment that they see in the economy. Anything green is good. Anything red on this side, I don't know if you can see it or not.
Okay,
anything
no, I do.
red is bad. So the fact of the matter is that home is going to be important. Home is going to be incredibly important going forward. Now, it may not be as robust as it's been in the past, but I believe that you're going to see people that have been staying at home saying, my bedroom furniture maybe needs to be replaced, my living room needs to be replaced, my mattress, boy, it's not very comfortable. Because as we were talking before everybody joined us, people are getting used to doing things at home. And many people that I know are actually liking it. So think about that, what it means to us as an industry and how important our industry is going to be to how people live in the future. I'm very excited about home furnishings. I would rather be in home furnishings than almost any other industry right now, I'll be honest. I'm glad we're not in the hotel business. Certainly glad we're not in the air travel business. I wouldn't want to be in the restaurant business. If you look around and say, what business do you want to be in? this is the right business. Something to be very, very excited about. And our impact on our local economies and what we're going to be able to do to make people live and help people live a comfortable life is absolutely fantastic. So, I'm very optimistic. I think we're going to outpace the industry. And really, Wall Street thinks we're going to outpace the industry as well. I want to emphasize this company that gets a lot of conversation in the industry, which is a company called Wayfair. If you look at where that company's stock was 4 weeks ago, they had a $2 billion market cap. Now they got an infusion of $500 million, and their market cap is now up to $12 billion as of yesterday. That's a 6-time improvement over where it was. Now, if that doesn't tell you the confidence people have in the home and everything around the home, nothing does, because that is a company that's focused around the home. And I will tell you, I think the stock market's looking at the industry very well. We're not a public company, but we certainly follow public companies. But the other thing is there's a lot of conversation about discount retailing, and the discount retailing is going to be the winner, the real winner. And what that means is really more promotional goods are going to be important. And, I think that as we look forward, and we saw this in the last recession, not everybody on the phone lived through the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009. And that was a tough time. But we saw the average unit sale price in a store go down, and we saw people looking for values. And they came into stores, they were still buying, but their value perception had changed. And I think we're going to go through the same thing this time, Mark. I think people are going to be focused on more promotional products and maybe more, 14-piece packages or buy the room and save money. I do think the psychology of the consumer has changed. And when the market's looking at retailers are going to win, I'll just give you some of the names of who they say is going to win. Amazon, TJ Maxx, Dollar General, Ross, Home Depot, Burlington. Those are the companies, Walmart, those are the companies that are saying going to win. And all those companies have one thing in common, which is they are discount retailers. They provide great value for the money. And I think that all of our retail stores need to focus on that as well and say, what can we do to make sure we're driving promotion and value all the time?
But you said something interesting in a conversation you and I had, and that is that you're not also saying that every store has to then go against their pedigree. You're basically saying that you can still be a higher end store, but there needs to be a mix and there needs to be a promotional mix. Would you talk a little bit about that? Because you're also not suggesting that everybody has to become a discount retailer.
No, it's value and just a perception of value. So, you can have a $3,000 bedroom set or dining room set or living room set on your floor, and it's just a perception of value in people's mind and how you promote it and how you sell it. It's a good, better, best merchandising mix. And my dad used to, the Blumpkins, we love the Blumpkins from Nebraska Furniture Mart, Irv, Louie, Ron, his brother, and that whole family is amazing. But Louie used to tell my dad, he's like, Ron, he used to point on, don't forget about promotional product. Don't forget about promotional product. You got to make sure you're covering promotional product. That doesn't mean you don't have better product on your floor, but don't forget about your opening price points and being able to take care of your customer, whatever they want. And that's going to become more important in the future, in my opinion, than the past. We went through an unbelievable economy. Unbelievable economy. And now it's going to get a little tougher. We've all been through good times and bad times. But as it gets tougher, we got to adjust our business models according to what the economic environment is going to be like.
I just want to remind people, if you've just joined us, we're having an in-depth conversation with Todd Wanek, the CEO of Ashley Furniture Industries. And this webinar will be available recorded on myhfa.org/COVID-19. Also, a little bit ago, we talked about the whole concept of home furnishing retailers being essential businesses. On that webpage, we have some wonderful documentation and verbiage so that you can utilize it, cannibalize it, and make sure that you're getting your message across to your state and local leaders as well. I want to, before we go any further, you kind of opened an interesting door here. Let me ask you a question without giving away company secrets. How did you prepare, maybe not knowing that it was going to be COVID-19, but what have you seen today that were preparations or some changes you've made in the last few years that made the most difference now? Because I think that would help other retailers get inside your head a little bit. Is there any of that you can share?
Well, I think on the supply chain side, we're really focusing on advanced planning tools, both supply chain and manufacturing, advanced automation. We focused on bringing more manufacturing back to the U.S. We're not doing less product in the United States. We're actually doing more. We invested in the company in Statesville, North Carolina, to produce RTA goods. The expansion and growth of express delivery, buy it and have it conveniently shipped to your home is fantastic. Going through FedEx and UPS, and I think that's here to stay. So I would say that we made a huge pivot 3 or 4 years ago. We've always made RTA furniture, but we really expanded and exploited it starting 3 or 4 years ago, and we believe that that's an important part of the marketplace going forward. So we're adjusting our product mix in a significant way. I'd say on the retail front, the most important thing we did is we've been investing a lot of money into our e-commerce platform for well over 5 years. And Mark, you were in our Tampa office several months ago, and you saw the team, you saw the capability. It's incredibly important to make sure you've got a strong e-commerce platform, and nobody could take that for granted. You know, the last thing in the world you want to do is be single-threaded as an organization. There's no question when the coronavirus hit, retail stores failed as a channel, right? We'll all agree to that. Whether if you're essential like Walmart, they didn't fail. But if you're in home furnishings or your Kohl's or anybody like that, that channel failed. And one of the things you don't want to do is be single-threaded as a business person and say, I'm relying on one thing to determine my success or failure. You've got to have a very diversified platform and find ways to get customers any way you possibly can. If they're going on the website, you've got to be able to turn things on and turn them off. And stores get turned off again. You got to be able to turn on your website. I'm not saying it's ever shut down. I'm saying you lean into it harder. And I just think that the whole philosophy that we've had, and I know many others in the industry have had, which is lean into e-commerce, find a way to keep building it, has been incredibly important. And you know, that together with the RTA development and e-commerce products, I think are very important. And the one thing I would like to stress, you know, going forward is let's not forget the lessons that we learned. As stores open up, I think the biggest issue that I'm concerned about is the fact that everybody's like, oh, stores are open, let's go. And everybody goes to their stores and they're like, business is going to be just like normal. It's not going to be just like normal again.
And let's talk about that for a second, because you mentioned a little bit earlier, you know, we know that there's going to be restrictions on people coming in the front door. So there's going to be management of that. Probably people going out are going to be very purposeful about their shopping. But we've known that so many people used e-commerce platforms as a way of doing sort of the run-up shopping, the window shopping, if you will, and then a lot of it transacting in store. What do you think that's going to look like, though, if we have limited numbers on the inside? So if I'm a retailer, you know, where do I put my focus when it comes to that, and how do I embrace the fact that more people are probably going to be dipping their toes in the water on my e-commerce side, or certainly on my on my web page or whatever it might be?
I don't think that I think you've got to be agnostic to what channel they buy from, Mark. I don't think you can decide whether they should buy in a store or buy on e-commerce. I think you've got to be 100% agnostic and say, I'm going to take a lead and I'm going to take a customer any way I possibly can. And if they're going to come in through e-commerce and they want to buy a pillow, I'm going to let them buy a pillow. If they want to buy a sofa on the e-commerce site, let them buy the sofa. We'll home deliver it. If they want to go into the store, you know, you have to have a unified cart. You have to know what they were searching for online. You got to have that in your RSA's hands. So you say, oh, well, I know you were searching for this sofa. Let's go over and I'll show you on the floor. Or have a way to identify what's on your website and then what's also shown in a store. Those are incredibly important things, but I don't think that we can say one channel should win or lose. To me, it's a holistic approach. The total market has to be served. How are you going to serve the market? Part may go through e-commerce, and in the past, maybe it was 10% of your business. Going forward, it may be 30% of your business. But take a total view of the market, and don't just take an individual view of the market. And then just make sure you're not single-threaded through this process and only have one point of entry for the customer.
I guess this has been a really great time for a lot of people to gain some traction online as well, because I know that there's been a number of retailers I've talked to that have said their e-commerce sales are 8 times what they were.
Right.
You know, that's not necessarily going to go back to where it was. You know, there's a lot of build in there. Have you guys been seeing that as well, that this has been just a great time to establish more of your online presence?
Absolutely. And, the traffic going to the e-commerce sites, people have more time, let's be honest. When they were working and driving home and, they only had a couple hours at home before they went to bed, I mean, that was a completely different environment. Now the customer's shopping more. And, there's this whole conversation about what's the office going to look like? Are we going to bring the same number of people back to work in the office in the future? I think you're going to find people with more free time than ever before. Because if they're not driving to work and they're going to work from home, and we're all seeing these video conferencing tools become effective, I think that the amount of time that they're able to spend online is going to be expanded. And I think that that's going to be important. I think the whole challenge is going to be, again, when stores open, making sure we don't change our focus. And then these are two different channels. A retail store and an e-commerce site are two different channels. How do you separate your marketing spend and all of those things to make sure that, number one, they're unified? I don't want to say they're two channels. You got to think of them as one business, but you also got to look at them as budgeting them differently. Because I look at it and say, if you were doing 10% of your business on e-commerce before and 90% in store, maybe it's 70-20 or I'm sorry, 80-20 or 70-30, and it's a plus up. And maybe you don't lose as much in your stores. Maybe you lose 10% of your volume in your stores because, again, customers are going to go out less and they're going to buy more, which we're hoping happens. And they go into the store and your average ticket goes up, your close ratio goes up, and then you're going to have that transactional cash register online that allows people to buy. So
I have to tell you though, I totally get that. The thing that I'm just wondering if I'm sitting there as a I want a single store, let's just say is gosh, how do I navigate? You just touched on it a second ago. How do I navigate advertising? How do I put together a promotion when I know that I'm not going to, I'm no longer going to look at it and say, hey, this promotion is going to drive my foot traffic by 10%, when I'm not going to be in a position to drive foot traffic based upon what's going on. So
yep.
how do you delicately navigate that?
I mean, I think you've got to experiment and test like crazy. You got to be turning channels on and, different advertising mediums, see what happens. Did that drive my web traffic up? Turn some things off and say, did that lower my sales volume? I think that experimentation, A/B testing, if you want to call it that, and just experimentation all the time. Don't go back to normal. Don't go back to normal. Stay in your uncomfortable zone, if you want to call it that, and say, how can we test until we prove theories and then prove what works? Because I think if we all just go back to what normal was and say, okay, we're going to go on TV and in the newspaper, and that's going to be our medium, I think we're going to end up in, I think as a retail industry, you're going to end up in trouble. You've got to constantly be experimenting with new things on your website, on advertising, all the way through the process. You've got to do constant experimentation. And the speed of acceleration of that needs to go faster than ever before. I mean, you have to accelerate the pace of experimentation during this period of time.
And when you talk about trying to figure this out and in some ways kind of beta testing what you're going to do, what's working, what ROI am I getting? Do you think that also there's even more emphasis now, or should be, on that interactivity on your website from the standpoint? I know that you're like a lot of retailers. You have, I know that that chat capability, things of that sort. Maybe it doesn't have to be quite that sophisticated, but isn't there going to necessitate more of a connectivity with the interactions you're having with people online, and not just assume that they're going to transfer into the store?
Yeah, I think you have to, and you got to find a way to stay connected to that customer. But whether it's videos online, whether it's chat online, whatever the tools are that you're excited about, appointments in stores, I mean, all of that stuff's got to be accelerated, and you got to do all of it. However the customer wants to shop, you have to accommodate it. And I think the big fear that all of us should have is that, again, we go back to what we did, and you got to just constantly be looking at different things. Videos online, in China, we do a fair amount of business in mainland China through retail. Live streaming is huge, absolutely huge. If you think of HSN, that's live streaming, right? Where they're constantly doing auctions and different things all the time, or selling things at auctions. They're teleselling, and they're telling them, here's what this product is, and then they try to sell it, not telephone sales. So I think that that's going to be important in the future as well. You're seeing many companies adopt that concept, which is live streaming, or even some kind of video where people can get product knowledge on websites. They can do all kinds of interactions on your website because they want to be informed. They want to learn. And those that can create a great experience on their website and then obviously carry it over to their floor, their sales floor, I think that they're going to win.
You've had a lot of connections over the years over in China and Asia. Now they're ahead of us in that there was, they shut everything down over there. Have we any lessons we can share from e-commerce over there, how they're restarting that might adapt here?
Yeah, and great point. So we do business in China. They were about 90 days ahead of us on COVID-19, and we saw a lot of changes. They did a massive lockdown. It wasn't like the U.S. did. It was just massive. You had to get a permit to go outside of your apartment building in China. That's how massive it was. So they were picking people up on the street. So that economy just shut down almost completely. And they were shut down for almost 60 days in total, complete lockdown. Their habits changed. Number one, the cold chain got cracked. In other words, cold chain is delivery of meats and vegetables and fruits to your home, and they could stay refrigerated. So that got cracked. So you saw unbelievable changes in how they bought groceries and really everything else. Store traffic in China is still down about 60–70%. And that few people are showing up to buy again. And e-commerce is just exploding. So I don't know if we'll quite go through that level of disruption the way that China did because of the strategy they took. But I do believe that we're going to go through a pretty significant shift in traffic and how people are buying. So we learned a lot from China. As a matter of fact, that taught us, and we weren't sure if COVID-19 would come here, but that taught us what steps the governments were going to take and how fast of action they took. So when the U.S. started moving, we were like, oh my God, cut costs, pull down the bank line, do everything that you can to control your expenses because this could get ugly. And it did.
We see that a few people have joined us. Want to just mention that you've joined this Home Furnishings Association webinar with Todd Wanek, CEO of Ashley Furniture Industries, and this is going to be, it is being recorded. We will have it available on our special webpage, myhfa.org/COVID-19. So the questions that keep flying in, and something that you certainly have intimate knowledge on is, let's, if we could, shift gears to supply chain.
Yep.
So many retailers of all sizes are saying, hey, it's great that we're starting to reopen, but what am I going to have to sell? What am I going to be able to depend on? I know that most people are saying, yeah, they're going to see a lot on the upholstery side, and there's going to be other segments that are going to be thin. Can you try to give us an idea about what you're seeing, what production levels look like, and what the lag time might be? And just that'd be a great overview to kind of get us into it.
Absolutely. So the supply chain, as I know it, I mean, I'm pretty involved in our U.S. manufacturing operations as well as what's happening in Asia. You know, when COVID-19 hit, we took massive action, but we never shut down. We kept producing furniture, but we had to understand that social distancing needed to be employed. We couldn't do, bring our employees and basically have them in tight quarters. We had to do social distancing. So we shut down certain assembly lines. We would alternate assembly lines. We'd bring them in on multiple staggered shifts. We did everything that we could to create social distancing. And we have 15,000 employees in the United States. A part of those were furloughed. We've called a lot of those back. Almost 70% of our workforce is back at work. And we've had zero cases of COVID-19 in our facilities throughout the United States.
Wow, congratulations.
That just says a lot to the protocols we put in place, which was temperature checking, unbelievable cleanliness in our facilities, as well as social distancing and closing things down. So we really worked hard on this over the last 4 or 5 weeks and making sure we had solid practices. But over that period of time, we've been trying to figure out, how can we bring our factories back in a more aggressive way? And we've been very successful doing that. Obviously, more panic by our employees in the early days. We settled all that down. We created a safe environment for them. If they had any illnesses or any concerns, we asked them to leave the premises. And if they had any underlying health issues, we made sure that they weren't at work as well. It was totally almost a voluntary process. I will tell you, a majority of our employees are working. They're happy to be working. And we're now starting to produce at much higher levels in our U.S. plants. As of last week, we were probably 50% of production. Coming into next week, we'll be close to 75% of production levels pre-COVID-19. And within 2 weeks, we'll be at 85 to 90% production. So we're ramping up as we go through this period of time. We've been shipping in every single one of our DCs, so we're continuing to evolve. The good news is we have all the raw materials on the shelf, and we never really slowed our supply chain down in a significant way. We never really shut it down, is maybe the way I should say it. Our supply chain was always active and working and moving. In Asia, Vietnam is back to work. At least for us, they're back to work, and we're looking at a relatively optimistic viewpoint, because I do believe that the home's going to win. We're not obviously expecting to grow this year, or even between now and the end of the year, we don't expect to see growth, but we expect to, get back to scratch by the end of the year and stabilize it. And our supply chain's moving now. And we've enacted a lot of measures to make sure, again, everybody's safe. And I believe that the supply chain is going to be in good shape. Over the next 3-4 weeks, it's going to be tight as stores open up, and we're still working through all the social distancing stuff that everybody needs to do just to be responsible. We got to make sure we social distance, and it'll be a little tight, but after that, it's going to continue to improve every single day.
Do you think there's going to be categories, Todd, that are going to be a little bit thinner? And I'm not just talking about just what Ashley's, what you manufacture, but what you're hearing as far as industry wide. Are there gaps? Because obviously I know there's a lag time between, especially the offshore, manufacturing plants and getting product here.
I would say that right now the gaps are going to be on things that really sold well during a slowdown. So home office sold like crazy, as you can imagine. There's other categories like that sold very well during the crisis, and obviously there's shortage of supply on many of that product, and we're continuing to ramp up our supply chain to take care of that demand. But the gaps, I think, are if somebody isn't really turning their supply chain on right now, and again, most people have shut down. They said, okay, put the key in the door and walk away. We tried, and we fought through this together with all of our retail partners. We fought and fought and fought just to keep open and keep moving, because we knew that once we stopped, it's so hard to get it started again. And I know many retailers did the exact same thing. So we fought through this. So our supply chain's been active and moving. I think the risk is if somebody just completely put the key in the door and locked it down, coming back to work is going to be a hard process.
So in helping all of our retailers, there's a couple of interesting things that you have that you've helped me to really see clearly, and that is how you do business when you reopen here. And you talked about 3 things. Talked about to make sure that the flow of inventory is in your words effective, that you're not taking big risks, and that you have a pull system in place based on customer demand. So would you walk us through that? Because to me, any retailer on this call that's going to be stuff that they're going to really want to figure out as they open their doors to make sure that they, I don't know, can certainly circumvent some inventory issues. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, we use this word called GMROI, gross margin return on inventory, in our company a lot. We talk about that. That's our whole philosophy on life, is spin your inventory fast. For every dollar you invest in inventory, you want to make sure you get a good return on that, so it's not sitting on your shelf for long periods of time. So we like to see weekly flow or daily flow in many cases, but GMROI is incredibly important right now, because you don't know whether you're going to sell 1 piece or 10 pieces this week of something, and you got to rely on somebody else's supply chain to be able to support you. So I think as you look forward, GMROI, at least for the foreseeable future and beyond, is something that you've really got to buy into, because I think there's going to be more variation from week to week than what we've seen. And having a strong supply chain behind you, that you don't take all of your money and put it inside of your warehouse and tie that money up. That's the biggest risk. Liquidity is going to be incredibly important for the next 6 to 9 months. Incredibly important. In that Deutsche call that I had this morning, they expect a lot of retailers are going to go out of business. They're also expecting traffic is going to be pretty bleak. So if your business is down, you don't want to be taking your available cash and putting it in the warehouse on it and holding a lot of inventory. What you want to do is use your cash to pay your bills, advertise, pay your people, versus having it tied up in warehouses. And I think that's something that everybody needs to be conscious of moving forward, and the fact that GMROI is probably the most important thing you could do right now, Mark, is making sure you're flowing that inventory effectively and finding every way that you possibly can to manage your cash and liquidity.
And if I'm understanding the concept, it's basically just obviously you're turning your inventory into cash, and then as long as you want to make sure that cash is is a higher amount than what you paid for the inventory.
Yeah.
Is it just that simple of an equation for people that want to understand it more?
Well, for people that are older like me, Michael Dell Computers, if you all remember him, he coined this term called cash to cash cycle. So I want to pay my suppliers, I want to get paid by my customers before I have to pay my suppliers. That's cash flow. And that's what you want to do in every single business. You want to cash flow and spin that cash as quickly as possible and not have it stuck in something that doesn't sell. Because again, I mean, we're really in survival mode as an industry, let's be honest. You got to think survival mode. You got to control your costs, control your expenses, and then make sure you don't put too much money in inventory and be super conscious of every single dollar you're spending, how your cash is flowing in, how your cash is flowing out, and then constantly working on that system and improving it every single day to make sure you get good cash flow.
So is there a percentage you'd like to see, or is it just you just want to be on the positive side, period?
Well, we have a cash to cash cycle metric. We want to be over 0. So again, if you do a cash to cash, you want to be like a plus 20 or 30 days if possible, which means that if you order from Ashley, we deliver you in 7 days. You take a payment from your customer immediately, and you flow those goods in, and you pay us in 30 days, for example. Your cash to cash cycle is positive, potentially positive 7 during that period of time. So you just want to measure that and say, what do I have cash going out? What am I getting for cash in? What are my turns to my vendors? How fast am I getting payment? And just manage that cash to cash cycle.
When you talk about cash, Todd, I'm also wondering, because I know there's a lot of these situations out there. So how does a retailer ramp up right now when they don't have a ton of liquidity? What would you suggest? I mean, what's the strategy in that kind of a situation?
Well, that's where I wouldn't put money in inventory. I would do my best to work off somebody else's inventory and make sure that I'm being very, very smart about it. I'm putting my money in advertising. I'm, probably not bringing all my salespeople back because I don't know what business is going to be. And, quite honestly, if we deal with a high unemployment environment, which many people are expecting, your ability to upgrade your staff is probably the best it's ever been. And that's got to be thought through as well. Whether you do the Jack Welch 70-20-10, 70% of your people are average, 20% are stars, and 10% need to go every year. Make sure you force rank your employees and say, who are my 10%, and make sure you don't bring them back. And then, constantly look at that workforce and make sure you got the most productive workforce you can get. But I'm just controlling my expenses, and I would be trying to put as much money into advertising as I could, and primarily digital advertising. And that's what I would be doing.
And once again, as you mentioned, though, on the inventory side, you're saying this is not the time for big risks. This is potatoes time, pretty much. Would you? Okay, all right. Appreciate 100%. That. I want to tap into yet another piece of your expertise in your business. COVID-19 has just also thrown a huge monkey wrench into delivery, as well as returns. So what are some thoughts? Let's start with delivery first. Are there things that we've heard so many people talk about the fact that they're already, those that have been open at least a little bit during this crisis, have been spending so much more on delivery because of the length of time between deliveries and having to pay more and everything else. So talk a little bit about the delivery side. Oh, this is getting important. If you take the jacket off, I know that we're getting into the heavy stuff. Okay, let's talk. Is that your delivery outfit? By the way. Okay, good.
But delivery is super important. And this touchless delivery concept. I mean, if you offer 3 levels of service for your customer, number one, have free delivery available if they want it. We all know that's very important online. Most people don't want to do it because they're scared of it and what it can do to their revenue. There's no question revenue will go down a little bit, but hopefully the increase in business will offset that. But you got to have free delivery, which is probably threshold. You need to have contactless delivery. And then if you're going in the home, you got to be very, very conscious of what's happening with your people. You need to have masks. You need to have PPE equipment for them. Preferably have the individual leave the room, the consumer, if at all possible, while they move the furniture in, so nobody interacts with others. And just really do your best to control that environment as much as possible. And I think if you give those levels of service, and some retailers are doing a fantastic job of this, saying, here's my 3 levels of service, that's great. And then make sure that everybody is aligned behind what it takes to keep those people safe. I don't know if you all saw, but this weekend, I think Amazon, Walmart, home delivery people are going on strike. They're going to do a work stoppage. And they're saying that those companies did not do a good job preparing them for going into the homes and for having customer interactions. And that's just going to propel. You're going to see it with Uber, probably whatever other companies are doing a lot of home delivery. So you got to be very conscious of what you're doing with your people. Make sure their trucks are cleaned every day. Make sure that the environment that they're in is clean, and then make sure when they go into the home that it's as safe as it can possibly be for them. Because this is going to be a little challenging to make sure you manage through this and make sure that your people don't get infected. The last thing in the world you want to do is to become a meat packing plant where you get an infection inside of your facilities. And that's something I'm very conscious of with our supply chain and manufacturing facilities, and say, we are not going to change our protocol. We're going to stick with this, and we're going to make sure we're clean and we're safe.
Well, and the importance in just the last few years of final mile delivery, and retailers of all sizes realizing that if you mess up the last 10 minutes of this arc of a transaction, then you've poisoned the well. Now you're talking about adding this complication of all of these necessary steps. So this is also something from an optics standpoint, correct? I mean, it's not just that you're protecting that delivery person, but isn't this a big aspect of making sure that you're providing the right optics for that customer to understand what you're doing, bringing things in?
Absolutely. I mean, those optics are very important. When that person gets out of the truck, the way they even wipe down the furniture in the home, they've got to be cleaning everything throughout the way, wipe down the door handle. Just take all those precautions. And you don't want to take any risks there. You want to make sure that optics with the mask and the gloves and everything that you do within your organization to keep them safe and clean, that they're well represented in the field when they go into a consumer's home.
So what the heck do you do about returns in this environment?
Hopefully you're so good at managing your delivery process that you keep everything as low a level as possible. And if you're not performing at the best you ever have right now as far as returns, because let's be honest, the amount of deliveries you're doing are smaller, you should almost be demanding perfection. And that would be the first thing I would go to. If you got a high return percentage, you got to be in the face of your managers or your teams and say, what's going on here? Because if you can't touch every piece and look at every piece right now when you're 30 or 40% down in business, shame on you. You got to make sure you're doing a great job handling that product. If a return does come back in, you got to clean it. You got to clean it and make sure it's as clean as possible when it comes inside of your facility. And I think we're all reading about plastic bags and how long the germs live on plastic bags versus other surfaces. So I'd say the plastic bags are one of the big things that you got to make sure you're cleaning all the time as well. If things are coming back in plastic bags like mattresses and other things like that, that you're making sure that they're cleaned.
Boy, this is, if I'm looking at underlying threads in this conversation we've been having, attention to detail right now has never been more important. Whether it's with your employees, whether it's with the customers, whether it's with your ad spends and how you're handling inventory. I'm not hearing any aspect of business right now where you have the luxury to put your foot off the pedal at all. Is
Correct.
that it? I mean, so there's an aggressiveness you need. How would what's the mindset on a day-to-day basis for a retailer, no matter the size? What's the day-to-day mindset? If you're walking in and you're starting your day, give me, if you wouldn't mind, what you think are those priority pieces so that I'm opening my doors when that happens and I'm ready to go. What would you say are those things?
Well, I think you've got to have a checklist on what you expect. Number one, you've got to communicate what your expectations are. And we have a saying at Ashley, you inspect what you expect, right? So if you don't inspect what you're expecting, define what you want first. We have checklists throughout our facilities saying they're digital checklists. And if somebody doesn't fill out their checklist, you got to clean the bathrooms, you got to clean the door handles. And we have people signing off on this stuff digitally. And if they don't do it within their allotted time frame, there's emails that come through all the way up to myself if they're not being done. And trust me, I mean, I'll jump on somebody's ass if I see a problem. And that's a core belief of ours, is that we don't want to look bad. We want to make sure that our employees are treated right. We want to make sure the environment's clean. So the first thing is identify what you want. Develop your checklists. on what you want to achieve within your operations, what's your level of cleanliness that you want to achieve, and then go out and inspect it. Go in your bathrooms, go in your lunchrooms, go in and look at your custodial services if that's what you have, and do your best to understand it. Look at your delivery drivers. How are your delivery drivers doing? Are they representing your company well? And don't take it for granted that it's happening. And that's the most important thing. You got to do the walk. And, I think years ago, there was this whole concept of managing by walking around. I'd say right now, it's more important than ever before, Mark.
And in everything, I mean, in every aspect of the business. What do you, Todd, what would you suggest is and I know it's going to still change, but what is the new customer experience look like in a I guess we call it post-COVID environment when it comes to home furnishing sales, no matter in store, online, or whatever. What's the customer experience do you think going to look like now that's different than what it was 45, 60 days ago?
Well, I think number one, it's got to be a great customer experience if you're going to bring them in stores. Has to be. I think there's assurances that need to be given to the customer that you're going to keep them safe if they're going to do business with you, at least until we find a vaccine, of course. Even after that, I'm a proponent of saying we're going to maintain these disciplines that we learned over this period of time and keep them in place. Don't give them up, because then if something does happen again, your muscle's already built and you're in good shape to be able to fight whatever comes your way. So I think that the customer experience is number one, safety. You better have a good story around safety and what you're doing with your customers. Number two, it better be delightful. In other words, we've all got businesses, and some areas there's what we call rub points. Whether it's delivery or whether it's order checking or tracking delivery drivers, you got to look at all those touch points that maybe are a little weaker and figure out how you're going to strengthen them up and make them better. Because we've got to have a really good experience for the customers all the way through. Social media is going to become more important than anything we've ever seen. So what your digital images, and we all have room to improve on that. The fact of the matter is furniture is it's probably the most abused thing that you have in your life. A lot of people don't understand that when they go to buy furniture. I mean, during this crisis, people are sitting on their sofa 12 hours a day, right? Think about that. They're eating on their dining room, they're sleeping on their bed. It's the most abused thing that you have in your life. And you just look through your life and say, what else is more abused? Maybe your car, but you take probably better care of your car than you do your furniture. So I think we got to do a good job in the total environment and the total ecosystem of taking care of that customer and making sure the social experience is good. And obviously maintaining the rules around what you want to do with the business. But I think that's going to be incredibly important, is making sure that your search criteria, your e-commerce experience, and then your social rating within your communities is strong.
I want to, in our last few minutes here, I want to circle back to something you said off the top, and you said it as kind of a cautionary tale, if you will, but you have a great concern about certain retailers seeing the unlocking of their front doors and opening up as, thank goodness, we can get back to business as usual. And I sense in you a real fear that people are going to do that when this is really a call for something different. Would you expand on that a little bit? Because again, everybody that's on this call is struggling in some form or fashion because of this crisis.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, Mark. I think that it's human nature to want to go back to what happened and the way it was before, and celebrate that, okay, the crisis is over, we're all going back to the way it was. There is no more going back to the way it was. And I think that it's our human nature, again, to go back and say, I want to go back to what I was comfortable doing, because this is hard. This is developing new muscles. This is making additional investments. This is teaching people a new way. And it's much easier to go back to what was happening before, because you were good at it. Well, let's be honest. The industry was prospering and almost everybody on the phone was prospering. So when you're good at something, you're like, I want to keep doing that. I want to keep doing that. That feels good, right? Well, the fact of the matter is you got to get good at this. And I'm just concerned that this, meaning the new world, which is e-commerce and social media, plus what you were good at before, plus up, right? Don't just say, here's my baseline. I want to go back to baseline. Let's go here. Let's plus up and let's get better at this and develop this capability. We all looked at Wayfair and Amazon and all those guys with envy. We really did as an industry, and rightfully so. They were doing an amazing job of growing like crazy, but we let it happen. You know, we have a saying, a parable of a boiled frog. You know, if you take a frog and you put him in water and you turn up the temperature over time, that frog's just going to sit there and he's actually going to enjoy it because it's like a spa. And if you put him in a boiling pot of water, he'll jump out and run away, right? Hop away. And this is exactly what was happening to us. We were a parable of a boiled frog. We were sitting in the nice water, enjoying the spa, and the environment around us was changing, and we weren't adapting to it. This has been a great wake-up call. I mean, I'm looking back at this experience and saying, this was fundamentally important for us to know that this industry is changing and change with it, and understand that these changes were occurring. The customer was telling us that they want to buy differently. We kept on hanging on to the things that we were doing before and saying, we're going to keep going with stores. We're going to keep doing what we do because we're good at it, right? You're damn good at it. You know how to convert sales. You got great salespeople. And when somebody walks to the door, you're closing them 30% of the time, right? Or better. This is harder. So that's my concern, Mark, is that everybody goes back to what they were comfortable with. And I hope that doesn't happen. I want to pray it doesn't happen.
And if they go through all this pain, you might as well come out the other end with some better business practices. I have to ask you a very self-serving question.
Yes.
The Home Furnishings Association is made up of hundreds and hundreds of members who are all different sizes, from the mom and pop store in the corner to mid-size, all the way up to you and Ashley being the number one. Why is it important to you? Why is it important to this industry that we try to bring everybody up, including that mom and pop that's fighting for survival? Why do you feel it's important from looking through industry glasses rather than just our own filter on a daily basis?
Well, first of all, Ashley is a family business. My dad started the business in 1970. I became involved in the 80s. My son and nephew and niece are all involved in the business as well and doing a fantastic job. It's very personal to us. We love the furniture business. And you know what? We love the entrepreneurial spirit around the furniture business. It's a great spirit, wonderful people, and probably the best industry you could be in. Again, you're able to touch people in their home, but this is filled with people that are just absolutely amazing people. And we want to see them improve. We want to see them survive. We want to see them have betterment of their life and betterment of their life for their employees. So that's really what we're all about, is figuring out how to make a better future for everybody that we do business with. And we're sincere about that. We want to see them survive. We want to see them thrive. We love this industry. We think it's a fantastic industry. And we want to see all of our customers do much better today than they did a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And into the future, we want to help them do a better job. And
you're okay with the competitors doing well too, because this is all about bringing home furnishings into the everybody's top of mind. I mean, that's fair to say, right? This isn't about domination. This is about this industry just being stronger and better. Is that fair to say? Oh, did I lose you?
No, you didn't lose me. No, I would say that.
Oh, did I? Uh-oh. I asked the question. I shut you down.
Well,
no,
course,
I mean,
everybody, Mark, everybody wants to win. And, I won't tell you that I want my competitors to thrive, but I also want to take market share and grow, like I'm sure they do. Everybody
Sure.
wants to do that. That's our human nature, is to compete. So of course we want everybody to do well, but we also want to take our fair share.
Well, and my whole point in that, and by the way, I made you speechless, which may be a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not sure. But I think that my whole point though is that it's all about everybody coming together and really promoting this industry also that helps
That's
everybody.
correct. I mean, our customers are very important to us, and we want to help them survive and thrive and do everything that we can. But I want to go back to this e-commerce conversation one more time.
Sure.
I know I've probably hit it a billion times already.
To
me, it's a must. We talk about musts in our company all the time. You must do this. Not you should do this or you could do this. You must do it. It is a must. The other thing that's a must is you've got to be focused on cash flow. We don't know where this economy is going. You've got to focus on cash flow, make sure your cash flow is tight, to make sure you're solid and that you can make it through whatever happens with the economy. The third thing that's a must is making sure that you create a great customer experience throughout the complete supply chain. And that's something that, again, must be done. And then let's not forget about being focused on promotional goods. Again, your fourth point. Discounters are seen as winning. And it's not just me saying this. It's Deutsche Bank and Goldman Sachs and all those companies are saying the customer's value consciousness coming out of this is going to be different. So let's not lose focus of that product. And then the fifth must is going to be your extended aisle. Serve your customers with a broader product assortment than what you're able to display in your stores, and provide the ability for them to buy it on other people's supply chain, like Ashley's. We can express deliver to a customer and take care of them. And we're willing to do that. We want to do it. We built a business model around it, and that allows you to get additional revenue, additional sources of income that are going to be so necessary in this future state.
Well, I think that wrapped it up beautifully. I mean, I appreciate that you hitting all the high points of what we talked about. I want to mention to everybody that we've recorded this webinar. It's going to be available at myhfa.org/COVID-19. So please suggest to people you know to go to that site and look for it. Also, Todd mentioned earlier, we do have some incredible resources there to help you with verbiage surrounding you as an essential business, so that you can communicate that and really educate the leaders in your area to ensure that you come back online in your business, but also should there be another dip that you're ready for it. And Todd, I also heard you're just really talking today about just being prepared, no matter the size of your business. Any final nuggets you'd like to toss out, or I'm going to give you the last word. You've been gracious enough to give us this hour.
Well, again, we want to thank everybody. Thank you, Mark, for being such a great leader. We really appreciate your organization and the leadership you're providing. Appreciate all of our customers. We're going to fight through this together. We're going to win. And we're going to help you win every way we possibly can, whether it's through our marketing specialists, our supply chain, anything that we can do for you, we're here. And we're very flexible in making sure that we all win this together. We're here to educate. We're here to help. So please call. Thank you.
Todd, I really appreciate your time today. Once again, our thanks to Todd Wanek of Ashley Furniture Industries. Todd, we appreciate the time. We know that you're busy. I'm Mark Schumacher, Executive Vice President of the Home Furnishings Association. I want to thank you for joining us. We are here with you and for you. We will see you next time.
Thanks, Mark. Bye.
Okay, thanks, Todd.